and welcome. The goal of this podcast is to get listeners connected with others in the sports industry because they say it's all about who you know, and now you know us. All right, hello and welcome, everybody. This is Connor Shank and Callan Coleman, and today you're listening to the Constant Sports Podcast, the show that is committed to connecting you with other sports professionals because they say it's all about who you know, and today, you know Mason Webster. Thanks for joining us today, Mason.
Hey, not a problem, man. Happy to be here.
Perfect. So, as we mentioned, we're talking with Mason today. He's been kind enough to join us, and he is currently a manager of sports experiences at On Location. And in this episode, we're going to talk about entertainment, events, sports business, graduate school, anything really related to sports in the sports sector. So we're going to dive in right now. And Mason, could you tell the viewers and listeners here just a little bit about yourself and kind of where you're at currently?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mason. I was born and raised in Kentucky. Went to University of Kentucky for undergrad. Got my undergrad in business management and communication. I didn't exactly have a whole lot of sport experiences there. I took my first sports management class my senior year, actually, there. So I realized that's what I wanted to do very late in the game. I always knew I wanted to do something in sport, but never really knew how to get started. Never really knew anything about the background of it. All I know is that first class I fell in love with it, and I knew I wanted to do it as a career. So after that, of course, I graduated May of 2020, right in the heart of COVID, right in the beginning of it, pretty much. So there was no job industry, really no sport industry either to really get experience. And so had to get experience in two other industries before I made my way over to Miami. I did banking and logistics for maybe a total of 9-10 months after graduation. So really not a whole lot of time. Was in the parents' basement for the time being because there was just so just kind of had to deal with that. And then finally, after about almost a year of really kind of hard work, was able to get accepted into the University of Miami's sport administration program for graduate school. So I packed up whatever that could fit in my car, drove down 17 hours down to South Florida, and kind of the rest is history. Honestly, spent a year, I think a total of 10 months down there. And then came back home during the summer. That's fast forward. Let's rewind a little bit. So whenever I got there, I started off interning at a company called Legends. Was working in global partnerships for the first half of my, basically for the first semester of graduate school, let's say. And then for the second half, I interned over at FIBA Americas, and their headquarters is down there in Miami. So just really wanted to get some international experience. I kind of was drawn to that. So I kind of just, I can get into more detail as we go on through here. But yeah, that's kind of just the overview of it. And then graduated and came back to Kentucky to finish up the online version during the summer in August, and got hired straight out of grad school as a manager of sport experiences here at On Location. And for the last 8-9 months or so, just been traveling to 10 different cities, managing 10 different events. And we're on our way to go to Greece and Italy here on Sunday for an international events. So, just kind of straight out of the gate, right out of school. Not a whole lot of experience, and then just kind of thrown into it. There's no better way to go about it. Nope. Just baptizing fire is real. So,
yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats on going to Greece. That's going to be sweet. I know we're excited to hear about it. It sounds like you and I kind of have like a similar sort of path. I graduated undergrad during COVID as well, from the University of Oregon, and never really thought I was going to go back to school before that. And then it kind of, I was in the sports industry. It kind of derailed everything there. So I'm kind of curious, once you made the decision on Miami, what was kind of your favorite part about the program at Miami, whether it was, a specific favorite class, people you were introduced to, or just kind of like the program as a whole, and sort of what it taught you?
Yeah, so really there's three things. I go back and I speak to over at UK every semester to their undergrad sport administration class. And I kind of give them the same spiel I'm giving you now here. There's really three things that I looked for whenever I was applying to grad school at sports administration. Really, the top three things I was looking for was location. You had to be in the correct location as far as like the right market to kind of go in, whether or not you're going to get that much opportunity.
Yep.
And Miami check that box as far as you every sports team, every opportunity was pretty much down there for the taking. So yeah, location was number one. The number two thing I was looking for was longevity. For this type of program, as you know, starting off in the sports industry, in a lot of cases, you're not going to be starting off making $1 million. So, like, as you guys know, it's a tough road to get to where you want. So that's why I think just kind of the return on the investment, I thought the program was right to make it about a year. 2 years down there as far as taking out student loans and how long it would take to bring it back, especially in the market of Miami, which I think at the time I was there was the most expensive place to live in America. I think they passed LA at that time. So yeah, it was tough to live there on a graduate salary, which was none. You just went into debt when
Yeah.
you went there, and you took every unpaid internship opportunity you could
Yep.
grab a hold of. So longevity was the number two thing, and the number three thing, and these aren't necessarily in any order, but the number three thing I really pay attention to is curriculum. A lot of sport administration or a lot of sport master's programs you see dabble in kinesiology, and you have a lot of science courses when it kind of comes with it. You really want to check the curriculum, and this curriculum had a lot of leadership courses, kind of more philosophy, management, just business, and more towards the business aspect of sport, and a wide variety like events, because I didn't know that a large portion of people who start off in sport marketing start off in events,
Mhm.
aka myself. That was a great thing to learn. So that was a great thing to kind of like have a whole class just based on
Yep.
managing events. So that was a really cool. And then you have a whole class based on law, and you have a whole class based on global partnerships with Wendy Deese, like who's the director of the program. So you really have a wide net of information that's thrown at you, and you really just kind of get thrown into everything that makes up the sport industry, and you can kind of choose your own path that way. You're not being very specific as soon as you walk in there, whether you're just going into law or kinesiology or anything like that. Like, you want to make sure you get your graduate degree in something you really want to do.
Yeah.
uh,
No, I'm with you.
yeah, so that's kind of the whole that was kind of my path to choose whether or not what grad program to really look at. And I think I graduate. I think I applied to let me see. I know Oregon was at the top of my list too, because Oregon
Okay.
was right up there, of course, with Nike.
Yep.
Ohio, a lot of people don't know.
Mhm.
Ohio's, I think, like number one, at least in
Yeah,
the
they're
Yeah.
they're big for sure.
yeah, not Ohio State University, University of Ohio, the Bobcats. Yeah, no one really. I didn't see that coming whenever I was doing my research for it.
Yep.
So they were big, and Georgia too. And I didn't have any experience going into it at all, and not at all, not any connection. So I was not really that hopeful as far as getting into a pro. Well, I get like I signed my Cincinnati lease for 9 months because I knew I was going to get into a program. So I was kind of hard headed at that point. I really believed in myself for it, but I never thought it would actually happen. So I applied to three. I think I applied to Georgia and Ohio, University of Ohio. I didn't even bother with Oregon because they're right there at the top, and then Miami. So those were considered really my whole top five. Um,
Gotcha.
just Miami just threw me a bone, and I took advantage and moved over.
Yeah, that's great. And it's kind of a very similar, path to, I feel like a lot of us is you graduate and you're like, I want to go into sports. So you're like, oh, let's look into the graduate schools, and you just type in like top sports management programs in the US or whatever. And then like, they kind of circulate and you're going through. But yeah, I feel like we've applied to kind of some of the similar programs, and you touched a little bit on the coursework. And one of my favorite kind of classes at ASU was like a sports marketing type of class. And we got to do these like, pitches, right? So we pretend we were representing, Steph Curry, and we're trying to pitch him to a different brand, and that stuff is in your time in Miami, were there courses or different, classes that you were like, okay, this class is sweet. I like the class, I like the professor. And then you've been able to translate some of those things that you've learned in the class into the real world?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, kind of I touched on it a little bit, but I can go in more detail. But yeah, kind of like the events class. Like as soon as like I actually to rewind a little bit, I remember day one going into it. I had just, moved away from my friends and my family and everything. And it was the first day of class and I was really excited and everything. And then I remember our professor kind of just gave us the rundown of kind of what to expect in the sport industry, how hard it's going to be,
Mhm.
and how just like here's what you're going to be making, here's everything like that at the very beginning, and kind of told and then she kind of went into, okay, well that's in sports, and now here's a whole nother thing through sports, and I didn't really understand the difference between the two, whether you're working in sports, whether you're working for a team or a league or an organization of that point, or whether working for through sports for companies that are like mine, like Endeavor, who are just kind of like a global powerhouse of a sport and entertainment industry that own the UFC, IMG, WME, On Location, now the WWE. So like it is kind of like you have companies like and like a Legends too. So like you have companies like that do their business through sport. And that's kind of what I learned, and that was most beneficial to me. Is that like, okay, there's not a cut and dry path here. You can really, even though that a lot of people do take that path, you can really sit down and make and create your own path here in the sport industry. You don't have to go the normal route of, working your way up in athletic department or starting working for a team. Like you can really kind of build your brand and build your own, skill set somewhere else, and then maybe eventually kind of go into a higher role or a higher position with that team because they like to hire. Whenever I was at Miami, I did informational interviews. I took advantage of that as many times as I could. I wish I would have recorded it like you guys. This is a fantastic idea. But I talked to about a dozen sport industry leaders, everywhere from the vice president of football operations at the NFL to the director of leadership at the NCAA, and high executive in sports partnerships at IBM. So like I kind of varied my net a little bit, just kind of get a wide spectrum. They all kind of came with the same conclusion that a lot of them hire I see. I'm trying to word this right. A lot of them hire candidates that have a wide variety of experience, and then they take them and they have them do something very specific. So if you're traveling all around, you have a wide net of skill set that you're kind of like and managing events is a perfect way to do that because you're doing everything from logistics to finance to client relations. So like you're traveling all over while doing that, getting no sleep, being constantly put under pressure, put to the test the whole time. So like when you have that kind of wide variety of experience, then those you really tend to be, and of course you have to have connections on top of that too. So you really tend to be a more viable candidate for somebody like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said there about how there's so many ways to get into the industry, not just on the team side. Like you said, you can go from the brand side to the managing experiences side, the partnership side. There's just so many different avenues to go in. And you started touching on location a little bit right there. Do you mind telling the people listening who maybe aren't familiar with the company kind of what it's all about, and then maybe going into a little bit of your day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what On Location is that we are owned, and I kind of touched into a little bit with Endeavor. And Endeavor is, yeah, like I said, it's a global sport and entertainment company. And what they do is that what I see that they do for the little time that I be there is that they like to have their hands in just about everything when it comes to sport, whether it's reputation, whether it's representation or live event experience. So what they do is what On Location does is they redefine the live event experience. So for instance, let's say the Super Bowl. right? So they have something to do with the Super Bowl as well. So I think I don't quote me on this, but I want to say On Location is the official hospitality provider of the NCAA, and I'm pretty sure the NFL too, but don't quote me on that. But like they have something as far as exclusivity with on that standpoint.
Mhm.
But what they do is that they redefine the live event experience to where if let's say someone buys Super Bowl tickets and they go and they're like, all right, I need to get a hotel. And I was like, okay, let's see what kind of parties are going around. Like, and then the prices start racking up and start going up and up and up. Well, what On Location does is that we provide a whole package. So we provide not just a game, not just, we provide an experience. So we have constant contacts and constant room blocks throughout all cities in the US and the world to kind of like help, like, okay, like we're going to take care of your room. We're going to take care of all of your entertainment throughout the week. We're going to take care of, in some cases, your game ticket, and we're going to take care of all of your parties, really pregame, welcome event, all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna, and obviously your hotel room. So like we kind of take care of every aspect. We take care of your transportation from the hotel to the game. So like there's really, once you kind of get a package, a live experience package, there's really no better avenue to take unless you just kind of want to go there, watch the game, and see what you can find around, or you can kind of pay it all up front and just not really have any surprises along the way. So that's kind of what we do in the long run. We do that for the Final Four, the Masters, the Super Bowl, anywhere from we and On Location in my department, which is collegiate. We primarily do collegiate sports. So there's really 4 seasons in my department that we do. Right now we're in our winter off season. Kind of not really off season, but just kind of downtime. So like right now we're getting ready for our first thing coming up, which is our fall sports. So basically what happens is like fall, like our collegiate partners want to like, let's say like once a game becomes big enough, it becomes an event. So whenever we're talking let's say like a Clemson at Miami or something on that regards, basically Clemson wants to take a bunch of their fans, and they want to make it a whole event, and they want to have a huge presence in Miami, and they want to have them all there. And so that's what we do. We take them there. We negotiate with the hotel. I'm on the phone with Clemson every other day or every week to kind of see what we're feeling, what kind of like what financial logistic aspects we're kind of talking about, what they want. And we create a whole experience package that someone can just go and buy at the click of a button. Any fan can. There's obviously limited space, but sometimes there's not. So you can just kind of go in there and purchase it, and then it'll close at one point. So yeah, that's fall, and then right after that we have ESPN. That's when we work directly with ESPN, and we work primarily with college basketball. And college basketball starts off their seasons all in like really small tournaments. So there's the Wooden Legacy tournament, there's the Myrtle Beach tournament, there's the PK85 that we just had, but that won't happen again until PK90. So like we deal with all of that. We work with ESPN, we work with the teams, we have everything to do from getting them there to housing them to the meals and to really all the experience as well. So, but that's more when we work directly with the team and less with the fan base. So that's really the second season that comes up. So we have our hands in that. And then right after that, we start bowl season, which is the season where I don't get any sleep. And then that usually comes right after college basketball / ESPN season. And what happens is that we have all of our collegiate partners pretty much in a bowl game. So, and we don't know the scenario of that bowl game until that day where everyone's selected. So we are creating, man, I'd say anywhere from 3 to 5 different scenarios for each team. And we have over, I don't know, like any 20, 30 teams like in there. So like, and there's a small team of us doing it. So like we're constantly creating different scenarios and in different cities. Like, okay, we have this whole experience for this one team in this one city. Well, guess what? They might end up in this bowl game. So
Right.
do the same thing for that. We have to do the same thing for another. And those are just projections. And some of the times they don't end up in any of those cities. So all that work went to waste. And then we have to start all over from scratch. So, and then we have to build it. And then once we build it, it goes right up in live. We don't have weeks to prepare like we do for college basketball, for college football. It goes up. We have a little bit of time, but and then we kind of disperse out and kind of oversee those events whenever we travel to go to those, whether that's Rose Bowl, Liberty Bowl, Alamo Bowl, whatever bowl game you can imagine. My first bowl game was the ReliaQuest Bowl over in Tampa for Illinois. And that was my first whole bowl game experience, and that was an awesome time. And Fighting Illini is a great fan base, and I fell in love with that fan base as soon as that trip ended. And then right after that, so that's the third season, and then right after that season comes the NCAA Final Four. And that is when I thought I didn't get any sleep. And then there's the NCAA Final Four, to where we don't know. We have different. So in this scenario, we had basically, out of the 62 or 64 teams, we had 30 or 32 clients out of that. So in all the brackets. So we are constantly and we only have the Final Four. So we are constantly making predictions to see if that client is going to go on the Final Four. And I won't give specifics out, but I had a client that was definitely high ranked up that had a pretty big upset. And I spent at least a week creating a bunch of different scenarios, and that happened. And then
it all just went to waste.
The biggest upsets in the tournament. It's like, okay, well, and that's crazy. So, but yeah, long story short, they dwindled down, and then we had every team in the Final Four, which is kind of all hands on deck in our department. Sometimes we have two. We had none in 2014, I believe. That was the first time ever, and it was right here in Dallas. That's when you pack it up and go home. But that's when but this time we had all four down in Houston, so it was a nice little 3-hour drive down there. It wasn't bad. I was a team lead for the first time. There were 4 team leads in the company. I was taking care of San Diego State. And San Diego State showed out big, like 3 times more than anyone did. And they had close to about 1,000 people traveling with us. And it was over about 4 planes, 6 hotels. So like it was a crazy amount of people, and it was all at once. We went on pre-sale. It went up like crazy. I'm having about 100 emails in my inbox. There are deadlines that are 2 hours overdue, and I'm on the phone with the client, and people are on hold, and I got 2 different bosses wanting 2 different things at once. So like it all kind of hit at that point, and you're up at so you're up at 6 in the morning at the very latest. You're probably going to bed at 2 in the morning for about 2 weeks straight, Monday through Monday. So Sunday. So it is definitely, and then you have an even shorter amount of time to go live instead of bowl season. Bowl season, you have a week or two. Final Four, you create it, it's up.
It's got to go.
It's up within an hour. So like there's very little room for error, and you have to have really constant communication with everyone around you to kind of make it go well. And 80% of the work is done in the office. Being on site, all you're doing is putting out fires and management. That's really it. So really all the hard work, all the organization, all the preparation is all done in the office. And then really you're just kind of there working with the NCAA, working with your team, and working with your client to just kind of all make it come to life. That's what's really cool about it, is that like I'm still young and I'm still paying my dues, as they say, but at the same time, like you're really giving these people like San Diego State. I can't remember the exact day, but I can't remember the last time they've ever been in a Final Four. Yeah. You know what I mean? Illinois, the last time they've ever been in a bowl game. Yep. So like you're giving these fans, they're so happy to be there, and you're giving them a once in a lifetime experience that they don't know if they'll ever get again. So It's a really cool moment to, you're making a difference with those fans. So I know I kind of went off little script there, but yeah, that's my whole spiel.
Yeah, that was their first Final Four in school history. So it's cool that you kind of got to be a part of, making that experience special for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, they, and I tell you what, man, like they lost, of course, in the last game, but you showed up at their hotel lobby. It didn't seem like they lose.
Yeah, they're still partying.
People walking out of the after party at 4 in the morning, like no one, like everyone was just really happy that that those are the best fan bases right there. Just kind of take it what it is and just really have a great experience no matter what the outcome is. So
Right.
it was a really fun time.
That brings great joy to my heart as a fellow San Diegan and big Padres fan. Aztecs did us well. We did have no teams mentioned. We did have a team leave our region and go to a rival region. But we'll leave that team out of that for now. As Mason, as you kind of touched on a little bit, being a team lead, kind of going to some of your first events down there in Tampa with Fighting Illini. What's like one of your core kind of favorite experiences that you went to? It might have been the one at Tampa, but what's one that really sticks out to you?
Man, well, really, the one that really stuck out to me, I guess, was really my Wooden Legacy experience, the ESPN, because that was the first one. I didn't have really any experience, really any event experience under that. I had zero going into the company, and then month one, I got sent to Nebraska, then Oklahoma. So like I got sent right out of the gate, but I had people with me. Wooden Legacy, the one in Anaheim, California. That was the one I went on my own. That was my first solo mission, and we had 4 teams. So it was just me with 4 teams. Good luck. So yeah, no, they prepared me really well for it, but overall, you just kind of got to rip the Band-Aid off in that. And then, of course, like the first team shows up, there's already stuff coming up. There's already fires being put out, like as soon as the first team, and then you start going like, okay, all right, let's ask someone, be like, nope, it's me. So like you just kind of got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. You got to make friends with everyone you can. That's when I just kind of learned like, okay, like, there's no, you obviously, I have leaders and managers that I can call, but you are the one on site and you're the one responsible and you're the one who set that up. So if there's any mistakes, it's on you. It's always been on you. So they're just there to lend a hand and make sure you're prepared for any scenario. So that was the one that really stuck out because it was when everything started to click. It was because I went to the Myrtle Beach Invitational the week before. So I was in Myrtle Beach for a week. I flew straight from the East Coast over to the West Coast to LA for another week. So that was a 2-week stretch where I was doing the Myrtle Beach Invitational and then the Wooden Legacy Tournament. And while I was in Myrtle Beach, I was trying to get everyone safely to the other side of the country. So like all the teams the other side while I was in Myrtle Beach. So like, and I was managing that event. So whenever I was done, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, I'd go out to my room, probably go to bed at midnight. Or 1 a.m. If I was lucky, and then do it. And then you get a call at 2 a.m. that ESPN accidentally, posted, wrong times of the tournament times. And then you got coaches calling you at 2 a.m. It's just like, it was kind of nonstop, never ending. But that's what was really cool about it is that like, you made it through that. And once you make it through that, you build more confidence, more events that you go on. You really learn, it's really a specific skill set that you develop when you go through all of these. And so I did, and a long story short, Wooden Legacy, because it was my first solo and first one that I can actually, stamp my name on and be proud of, and come back to the office and everything ended up going well. The teams had a good time. Get that stamp of approval for that. That was definitely one that stood out to me.
It sounds like you really enjoy what you do. I mean, you have so much to say about it, and it seems like you've really enjoyed it. So I'm kind of wondering, excuse me, obviously you're early in your career. Do you think kind of event experience is something that you want to continue to do as your career goes on, or do you have kind of a goal to, maybe go to a different sector of the sports industry, or are you kind of just taking it a day at a time?
I don't know. That's a great question. It really is just taking it a day at a time because eventually you have to come up with something specific. Like I said before, like it's really great to have all of these different skill sets and to learn all these different things. But eventually you really want to kind of be known for the guy to go to, the go-to person for
Yep.
one thing. So for one specific thing. I mean, of course you want to have a wide variety of experience, wide variety of knowledge, but you really, it's kind of, that's kind of what they teach you in our grad program as well, is like, you really have to be an expert at really one thing to kind of set you apart from the rest. So I'm really early in my career to know what that one thing is yet, but I can tell you what, it's a lot of hard work, but I'm having a great time doing it while trying to figure that out. And that's kind of it for everyone. Like everyone just kind of everyone's battling for that same position, right? Everyone's battling, but you'd be very surprised how many people actually read the job requirements and read the job descriptions. And you really want to like what you do, no matter what. Like, of course, you're going to have to do stuff that you don't want to do. But like, it's really important to have passion and to really know and to really learn what you want to do in this industry and not just go through the motions, not just be another clog in the machine, just keep it going, just to say like, oh, I'm in the sport industry, or oh, no, like it's really important to, separate yourself from the whole equation and kind of, like I said at the very beginning, create your own path.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I was like asking, 2, 3, 4 years ago when you were getting through school and thinking about your future, did you ever kind of envision yourself that you'd be running these types of events, doing these, event marketing things, being a manager on location? Like, did you kind of see this coming, or how'd that all come together?
Oh man, no, absolutely not. So it was oh man, like I didn't know what to expect, just like anyone going into it. I don't know if I'm going to work for a team. I don't know if I'm not going to work for a team. I don't know if I'm going to work for somewhere else. I had no idea that this job, this company even existed before my grad program. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I had no idea, but I knew whatever I was going to do, I knew I was going to be good at it. And it's a tad, it's not, narcissism, but it's confidence. So like,
Yeah.
it's like, I knew whatever I was going to do, I knew I was, and it kind of works vice versa. Whatever I didn't want to do, I gave no effort into it.
Yep.
So it was, it was a double-edged sword there, but whatever I love doing, I knew that I was going to compete to be the absolute best at it. So when I found, that's why I didn't really know what I wanted to do until really late in my undergrad career. So like, that's kind of, I gave no effort. I think my dad gave me some really good advice. Is like, if you don't like your class, if you don't like your class and your major, if you don't like what you're learning, you're probably not going to like what you're going to.
Yeah.
Right.
So it sounds really simple, but people are kind of taken back by it, to be like, at least I was, be like, wow, that's actually a really, like, of course, no one wants to take chemistry, or no one wants to take,
Got that right.
You got to take those certain classes, but you should at least have a little bit of enthusiasm while you're doing it. At least you're like, all right, this is towards something else. This is towards something bigger. But I didn't really have that until I went in the sport industry. Yeah, so to answer your question, no, but I knew I was going to do something, and I knew I was going to compete to be the best at it.
I'm with you there. And I think I've said this before, but that's kind of one thing I love about the sports industry is when people think like, okay, I want to work in sports, like we've said, it's either like, oh, I want to be a GM, I want to work in, the front office or something. There's so many companies as like On Location, Endeavor, all those places that are like hand in hand, as we've talked about, in sports that no one even knows exists, right? Which I feel like is, so cool to have that opportunity within sports. They got so many different sectors, so many different avenues, as we all build out in our careers going forward. So that's just a little side note. It's one thing I love about sports and the industry itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Like one of my managers that came and helped run the whole NCAA show with us for March Madness, he has his hand in NFL International as well. Yep. So I'm getting constant alias emails from our company about like, everything's, going live for all the trips to London and Germany and everything. So like, you can You can have this like, and they offer you different opportunities in this company as well. Like my job is primarily collegiate, but I'm doing global football here from, Sunday to for 10 days from then. So I have my hand in that. They have the UFC as well. So, there might be opportunities down the road to like kind of like dip your hand in the UFC life and see how that whole experience is like. I did Super Bowl 50, was it 57? 53? I can't remember off the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
57 or 53. I should know. Wow, that's bad. But yeah, here we go. But yeah, so like but I did this last Super Bowl too. So that's professional sports for you as well. So yeah, like you can really, if you really have to do the correct research and necessary research to really find what you would do, because not only is it important for what you want to do in the future, it's important to get as much experience as possible. And like when I was reading this job description, it was the first job description that really stood out to me, and it was just like, okay, wow, like you have your hands in just about everything that has to do with sport, and such a wide variety of experience you can get. So that's kind of why what really kind of took me towards it, because like I really wanted to be more out. I never really wanted to kind of just be stuck on one team or anything like that. Like, I really wanted just a lot of different experience.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, it's good play there on your part. And a lot of our viewers and listeners are either in the phase from graduating, looking for jobs or whatnot. And so, as you touched on a little bit, looking through the job requirements on location, can you maybe give our viewers here a little bit, maybe some tips or tricks on kind of how and what separated you in the interview process for On Location?
Yes. So really, the kind of, oh man. I honestly, okay. So if you're in graduate school, there are some things that I did that I think are extremely important that set you aside. The number one thing is informational interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is extremely overlooked. I think that it is probably one of the most important. Whenever I went up to my professors and talked to them after class, some couple of them said like, you're the only one taking advantage of this informational interview aspect, and it does more than teach you. That's how you develop relationships and develop connections as well. So
100%.
That's kind of what, like for instance, my event experience at Dr. McNary, my event class professor, she hooked me up with the director of NCAA leadership. So, and the relationship that me and him have been able to build from that day to now has been great. We had an event. I think Nebraska played Purdue. We were taking Nebraska over to Purdue. We housed them in Indianapolis, drove them to Purdue, drove them back. And it was in Indianapolis. What's in Indianapolis? NCAA headquarters. Next thing you know, I'm meeting with him in the morning for coffee there, and he's giving me a tour of the facility. So like, you know what I mean? It's stuff like that. And same thing with the Super Bowl. My connection over with the executive there, we didn't exactly meet up because I was running back and forth, and our schedules couldn't align, but we were texting back and forth, like wanting, like, hey, like if we have time or coffee, let's meet up and let's get together. It's the least I could do for you, giving me the type of respect and knowledge and advice that you gave me during grad school for it. So you really just kind of see these relationships grow beyond grad school. It's really just the start. So I think, and it takes a lot. I probably reached out to, dozens of people. Dozens just to hear from them, just to pick their brain a little bit. And out of like, I don't know, it had to have been hundreds of people I reached out to during the grad program. I probably talked to about a dozen. That gave me about a dozen executives to kind of talk to. So that's kind of what I would suggest. Just make sure you take advantage of that. And another thing to really, that was really important, take advantage of every single experience you can get your hand on when you're in school.
Yep.
That is, in my opinion, the number one important thing. And I'll give you a couple examples here. Whenever I was at Legend, so we were in a class, I applied for a job I really wanted. And it turns out my friend at the time, my friend still, but my friend that I met for the first day at the time, he got that position. And what me and him had a really good friendship that he was able to have me come on for just to be a game day volunteer, because you always need game day volunteers whenever you're in Miami. So Saturday mornings, get in the car, 5 a.m, drive to Hard Rock, be the first people there, last ones to leave for sponsorship, right? So, but while I was there for game day volunteer, I did my very best to compete against everyone I was there. Really just kind of develop a sense of what the job was like. Was learning as the process went on, hanging stuff up, getting my hands dirty, hanging stuff up that I had no business being on that high up on a ladder. You know what I mean? Like, you really just kind of go above and beyond, show them that you are willing to do whatever you can. And then I was, and then I took one of them, I took one of the managers at the time, spoke with them on the football field, and just kind of talked like, hey, if you need my assistance at all for the rest of the year, I'm willing to give you everything I got, and got an internship out of that. So really what turned into a game day volunteership turned into a semester long internship. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, you really need to take advantage of all these. And for FIBA Americas, so for FIBA Americas, I decided to move on from Legends to FIBA just for the international experience, and I want to get a wide variety experience while I was there. I love my time at Legends. So, but then when I moved over to FIBA, I was really just supposed to be brought on as for data analytics. I was really just supposed to collect some data and stuff like that. That's originally what I was told, and it changed. Like, the second day I was in, it's like, hey, this company is the creator. So FIBA Americas is the international governing body of the sport of basketball. So everyone else around the world uses FIBA while the US uses NBA. So it's kind of like FIFA, but for basketball. So yeah, so they haven't had a mascot ever. They've been basketball's been around for 100 years. So like they've never had a mascot, and they're like, hey, you took a class in this at one point over at Miami. We went over Seattle. I forget exactly what class it was. I think it was sports marketing class. And that's kind of when I kind of fell in love with sport marketing. And we went over the Seattle Kraken and how they developed and how much research that went into just making the logo, the name, everything. And then next thing you know, they're asking me like, hey, do you want to create the official mascot for the sport of basketball? And I was just like, I would love to try. Like, there's no business of an unpaid intern having this much, responsibility for it, but you're able to talk your way into a lot of things. So I was able to do that. They were able to give me that opportunity. And for 3 months, I studied every single culture over 42 different federations. Try to find commonalities, researched animals, researched people, researched mascot vendors. Long story short, I gave him three options, presented in front of the president of FIBA. He loved it. He loved one of them. And next thing you know, Mary the Toucan made its debut in Brazil not too long ago in September. It's really one of my proudest accomplishments. It isn't a lot, but it's one of those things that it was my most memorable time whenever I was in Miami, because it was the first project I was given that had a significant impact, that I knew that, like, okay, I belong here. That I can do this is something that I'm actually, because you never really know if you're really good at something until you kind of get that positive
results
or the result. Exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever I got that, it was just like, okay, you just, created the official mascot of the sport of basketball for North America, South America, and Central America. And I was just like, whoa, that's really, really cool. I want to do sport marketing. Like, I think that this is something that I can do. But things like what turned into a little, you're only going to be here 2 days a week and it's for data analytics, turned into that. So, everything happens for a reason, and people love eager people who want to get their hands in everything. So that'd be my advice. I think there was one more, I forget off the top of my head. But yeah, it's really informational interviews. Take advantage of every single opportunity that you can get. And if I could, what was it? I'll remember at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, yeah, it's I feel like that's just goes back to saying, just like, take advantage of the opportunity at hand, right? You never know what one thing's going to lead to another, from that story, I basically feel like, I know a famous person that invented a logo for FIBA. So I feel kind of,
Oh no, not famous.
proud knowing you now. I mean,
Relax
man,
on me. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I really
It
just,
did not. It did not spark up enough. It did not spark. It did not spark up enough publicity as what I had hoped, because no one knows who FIBA is in America, unfortunately. But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, like it's cool to kind of get kind of just be a part of that.
yeah, no, definitely. Especially as you move out, along with your career, that's something you can always go back to. And I think that's important for the viewers and listeners to kind of keep those things, right? Keep those one or two, three project that you've created, you've done, like keep them at the kind of the top of your mind. So if people ask, like, hey, what have you been up to lately? It's like, well, I just created, Marry the Toucan. So, bam, you got that right, locked and loaded, or I just did this event, or I just did this sponsorship. To keep those things kind of top of mind, especially on like your LinkedIn or different personal pitch decks you have, keep those ready, locked and loaded as you move out through your career, I think is huge,
Yeah, no, completely agree.
And then, we kind of, you touched on it a little bit, but, would you have any other advice, I guess, for someone that is looking into the sports industry? Maybe they're hesitant about going to grad school. Is grad school something you think is, maybe not necessary, but you think would, give them maybe a step up, or do you think it's for everyone? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate on this, and there should be, because if you already have connections, and I think it's kind of it's a weird it's a weird topic to kind of like, in my opinion, yes,
Mhm.
it is essential. It is very essential, because, well, for me, I didn't have any experience. My dad's a medical physicist, and I had all my uncles are police officers and pilots and business owners. So like, no one. I'm the first in my family really to go into sports.
Got it.
So for me, but for me, like I really had to do that to really get it. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who really wanted to go into sports in undergrad, but they would always, when I would ask questions, they would kind of say the same thing, but they didn't know really deep into like what sport can offer. And I learned that in the grad program. So yeah, so I to answer your question, I do believe it is essential, but I think it is important if it's right for you. And those
Yeah.
three things that I mentioned earlier: location, longevity, curriculum. If I think it's stupid to kind of jump into a sport administration program without doing
Yeah.
any type of research into it and just saying, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do after undergrad. I just want to go into grad school."
Yeah.
And I basically said that to my mentor over at University of Kentucky. And I always say this to his class. He always loves it. I asked for a letter of recommendation for that. He turned me down. He was like, "No, like I don't see. You have to prove to me that this is something that you really want to do, and this
Wow.
is something you want to." So I worked for a whole year. I worked for about an entire year, and then I went back to him and was like, "Hey, can I have your letter of recommendation? I really want to be specific, and I want to go into sports and not just a generic MBA." And he was like, "Of course." So like you really have to be sure. It's a big decision. Like, you're
Yeah.
in debt for the next 20 years of your life, but at the same time, I would never have gotten the opportunity that I have now without my grad program. I went straight from a classroom to a management position. I was able to skip 5, 6, 8 years of experience for an opportunity like this, just because of what that grad program had to offer me. There was so many different there were so many different resources that I had no idea about, whether it was like, hey, analytics is a huge thing coming up in sports right now. They have an avenue for that. I think they're going to be developing that class here pretty soon, last I heard. And you have classes. I was the only person that just kind of was like, hey, let me dabble in this. Let me code a little bit. Like, let me see what it is. And I just went to workshops at Miami that they were offering for free over at the library. And then now my job inquires a little bit of coding. So you just, it's, I think it is very important, but at the same time, just understand that you are going to be, this isn't, a trip to Miami for a year sounds incredible. But for me, I went to the beach for the first time a week after graduation. I
Wow.
went in there and I worked. I made a plea that I was going to respectfully outwork everyone else around me and develop great relationships at the same time.
Mhm.
It's essential. You have to, like, my daily routine. I woke up around 5 or 6 in the morning. I went to the gym. I went to work from 10 to 5, and then I went to class from 6 to 9, and then instead of doing any type of extracurricular, like hung out or anything like that, I went straight to my room and I did research on jobs. And I probably didn't go to bed till midnight. And then I repeated the same routine almost every single day. That's what kind of set me apart of like, okay, like I'm fighting for an unpaid internship versus I'm fighting for a management position straight out of the gate with no experience. That's the only reason I was able to get stuff like that, because I was able to learn, I was able to read leadership books, I was able to really get an idea of what, you know, hard work and what it kind of took to get there. Because because I feel like a lot of the times it's kind of widely known as like, okay, you go to school, you get an internship, you get good grades, that just sets you up right. There's not, in my opinion, I'm a little hard headed. Like that's really the bar level. Like that's you're not gonna, that's when you're gonna get the unpaid internship. That's when you're kind of get that whole thing. But whenever you go above, that should be the bare.
That's what's expected. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Like that's the bare minimum of what you should do. There's not many people that do that, grow up. Like whenever you hear stories of CEOs and how they get started, and GMs and how they get started and everything, they have crazy stories and everything like that. So I think it's important to set yourself apart in that instance. And I think that you need to create a new standard for yourself. So the standard I had for myself, I basically went into it with a certain salary expectation that was, completely unrealistic. And I get with the position expectation right at the start. And in the first day, I was told like, hey, like you're going to be fighting for an internship with everyone, for an unpaid internship. And I was like, and I didn't take that as discouragement. I didn't take that as like, oh wow, okay, this may not be for me. I use that to be like, oh wow, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Like I saw my whole life for the next year flash before my eyes to be like, oh, I'm not going to be learning Spanish. I'm not going to be going out to clubs. I'm not going to be getting sunburn on the beach. Like I'm going to be I had no furniture in my apartment. There was no time. I had a yoga mat and a Christmas tree, and that was it. I had that for a whole year. And then I had a roommate, and he was getting his grad school program too. And me and him, we just tag team and worked. That was it. We got home, we worked. I think I had people stay at my place at one time, and they were just like, oh wow, you really don't have anything. You don't know. I had an air mattress. That was it. I had an air mattress for people to sleep on if they needed to sleep. But that was it. My sole purpose was there to work and was to get as much information as possible, because I didn't have that luxury in undergrad. I didn't get any type of information. So that was my time to really, put everything into perspective and see what my rest of my life is really going to look like. And I've great fortune of having very successful friends straight out of the gate, making six figures straight out of undergrad. So like I really use them a lot to motivate me and to get me to that next level of where I'm at. So yeah, I would say just have realistic expectations going into it if you decide to go into a grad program, but really understand that, if you really dedicate the whole year, and it's just a year, it's a year, man, it's a year. And you'd rather get all those unpaid internships for teams and experience while you're in school. If you do it right out of school, it's an entirely different, scenario where you might have to turn down some things because it's just not livable. Right. So, I think there's a lot of factors to consider with that, a lot of filters you need to have, but it is worth it in the long run. And I can attest to that.
Yep. 100% agree with you there. And we appreciate you jumping on the podcast today. And before we go, where can our followers and viewers kind of get connected with you? How can they follow along? Are there, events that we can keep our eye out here in the near future?
Yeah, of course. I post every single one of my event experiences on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn at Mason Webster, just spelled like the dictionary, last word. So not too difficult. That's really it. I mean, I have an Instagram, but I mean, it's just a social Instagram. But yeah, really just LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the best way to reach me if you ever have any questions. I'd say email, but if you really want to, get my attention that way, LinkedIn would probably be the best way.
Perfect. Well, thanks. And we're looking forward to watching some of the events that are coming up unfold and be able to follow along as you're, I guess, progressing your sports career. So thanks again for jumping on today. And everyone, thanks for watching and listening. And this has been another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast. And we'll be dropping on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find your podcasts and videos. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you guys later.
Thanks, Mason.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you fellas.
Yep. See ya.